Hello, 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 and welcome to the Mystic Nerd Squad podcast. I am your host, Kelly Meyerson, and today I'm joined by Kevin Moreau, aka Mr. Mingle. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about him before we get started with this amazing conversation. Kevin Moreau, aka Mr. Mingle, empowers misfits to embrace their uniqueness and transform perceived weaknesses into strengths. A neurodivergent, multi passionate trailblazer, Kevin's journey spans anthropology, dance, and geek culture. As a Misfit Empowerer and Owlistic Coach, he leads the Happy Misfits movement to inspire connection, joy, and resilience. There is nothing that I'm not like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's just such an amazing bio. And I know what an incredible person you are. Mr. Mingle, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, yeah, you're so very welcome, and thank you for inviting me. I'm super excited to be part of this podcast.
I am too. And there are so many parts of that I'm really excited about in your bio. In particular, the end result of connection, joy, and resilience. And I think this is such an important time for all of us to really feel connected, to embrace joy, and to experience more resilience because there are a lot of things going on. There's polarization. And yet, I find, and I'm sure you'll say the same, I'm meeting the most incredible human beings across the globe. And so many people who really believe that it's time to be who we are uniquely. And I just want to say at the outset that for some people, it doesn't feel safe to be who you are. So maybe it isn't. And maybe it's psychological safety, maybe it's physical safety. But what we'd really like you to feel by the end of this podcast is that even if where you are now and who you're with now, you're not feeling the experience of true belonging and you're still trying to fit in. By the end of this podcast, we'll have some tips and tricks for you and some places that you can go to find that connection and community you're probably seeking. How does that sound?
Love it.
Good, good. So, where do we begin? I really relate to you on so many levels, from the neurodivergent piece to the multi-passionate piece, to the piece of at some point in my life feeling like belonging wasn't just a possibility, that it was just not going to be for me. I was going to have to keep fitting in. And so tell me a little bit about your journey. Was there a time that you were like, I'm going to do everything I can to fit in because I'm such an outlier and I feel like I don't belong here?
Oh yeah, and there are actually so many chapters about that, but I want to, and just so you know, so I'm neurodivergent, right? So I tend to have my mind jungle go wild. So I will do my very best to stay focused and to just tackle one topic at a time. I'm doing it especially for myself, right? To just it's a good habit, but so instead of trying to cover that on all the different iterations, I will just focus on one, the most meaningful, I believe. And yeah, really, to me, there was especially so when I was 8, my parents moved so from one part of France to another. And actually, so I always have been different based on the feedback I received from my parents and friends of my parents. I always had been singular. I always had been kind of odd, not necessarily negatively, but I was special. And when I arrived in this new city, it hit me hard. I was alien to them on on different sides because I was coming from another part of France, but also because I was behaving weird. I had weird um, centers of interest, and yeah, I wasn't fitting their picture. And you most probably know kids, they are building their identity over time, right? They were granted an identity by their parents, and usually, especially when you're starting, around 7, 8 to 10, before teenhood, you start to question that. You start to kind of test that. And at some point, when you really go teenager, then okay, you know what? Let's blast that away. Let's destroy this identity and create a new one. That's at least for many kids, it's how it happens, right? And really, I landed at the absolute worst time for them. They were kind of reconsidering finding new ways to understand their own identity and how the world worked for them. And then I arrived and I was like, oh, what that creature from outer space. So they widely rejected me. So I really, for the first time in my life, I strongly felt rejected, strongly felt repelled in a way. And and yeah, they started to bully me for long years. But actually, it's not the point. The point is I wanted to fit in. I wanted to make new friends because actually I love making friends. I love connecting with people, meeting new people. They wouldn't allow that. So actually, this rite of passage of sorts for many kids that you will be offered a cigarette and to see if you're cool enough to join the group. And I never had that opportunity. They wouldn't even do that. They wouldn't even test me, which actually now I see was a blessing. I was spared of a lot of health troubles, and I avoided to lose a lot of money because they really wouldn't allow me to fit in, no matter what. So that came with a lot of pain back then, but actually it brought a lot of goodness. It allowed me to grow my way. It allowed me to grow my unique way, or at least a unique way, and later on to connect with people that did the same, that were very alien, very weird, very misfits as well.
I love that. I think what I've recognized a lot too in my own neurodivergent journey, um, having ADHD and not realizing I'm in my 40s that I've had ADHD my whole life. And there's this piece of ADHD, it's called RSD or rejection sensitivity dysphoria. And what basically happens is you're more prone to feel the experience of rejection, and it can be triggered by actual perception of rejection, especially if you're a kid, but it's also that feeling of like I've done something wrong. I'm not fitting in. I got an answer wrong on the test. I raised my hand and I said the wrong thing. um and knowing that now and looking back at the younger version of me experiencing the RSD, it's such a hard balance between really being who you are, whether that's perceived as weird, you're a geek, you're a nerd. For me, all of those things. Um, and also feeling the rejection. So desiring to just be yourself and also feeling like it hurts to be myself sometimes. Literally is a painful experience. But do you relate to that at all? That sense of the RSD?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't. And that's the thing with this concept that has been researched in psychology. It's very good that we had scientists really having a broader picture because otherwise we can't know because it's so personal that you can't realize if you start to associate that with yourself. And I was exactly in the same. I started to question that whenever someone reacted negatively, I started to ask myself, what did I do wrong? what's going on, to the point for in my case that whenever people demonstrated any sliver of anxiety, of anger, or a negative feeling, I would assume it was because of me. Or
Mm-hmm.
whenever I would hear people laughing or giggling, I would assume they were mocking me, actually. So it might seem very self-centered, and I assume it is to some degree. But it was really because I've been kind of for so long, for 8 long years, I've been bullied by classmates, and actually some people I considered my friends, quote unquote. So obviously it messed me up quite nicely. And so I was, mixing love and hate and belonging and rejection all at once. So at some point, I started to do that to myself. I became my own bully. I started to self-bully. And I was blaming myself. And once again, I assumed that most probably if someone was angry at something, I had something to do with it. And so I guess it's really, really linked to that. Just I recently discovered an incredible tool I would love to share that actually explains so many things about that difficulty to find yourself, to really finding one core identity, a homogeneous aligned identity, because actually at least for this practice it doesn't exist. It's fascinating. I'm sure you'll love it, but we'll see if we have time.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, I think that that's such a critical piece, the bullying that shifts from being external to being your own internal bullying of yourself. And I think that for me, and I'm sure for many people, is a lot of the work, the healing, the moving towards how do I shift from all of the negative self-talk. And being neurodivergent, our brains memorize information and replay it like a broken record. I could listen to the same song all day long in my head perfectly. So those things really stick and they stay, and making those changes is quite a bit of work and energy. Has that been your experience as well?
And I'd say like the most critical, the most critical point I identified. So maybe for some people it was a given, and they might be kind of laughing at me, like, oh, it took you so long to realize that. And actually maybe some people are still stuck in that and still don't realize. But for the longest of time, and honestly I don't remember when I finally realized, when I did the shift, but maybe like, yeah, I'd say 15 years ago, but yeah, maybe even earlier. Anyway, so for the longest of time, I didn't separate myself from my emotions and my thoughts. So I believed my thoughts were my thoughts and not that I was having thoughts. Same with my emotions. Instead of realizing I had emotions, emotions were going through my body and I was able to perceive them, I believed these were my emotions, that these emotions were directly mine, and I didn't have any distance from that. So whatever I was thinking or feeling, to me, it was directly mine. It was directly what was happening into me, which now I realize was an absolute lie. That I am able to think, I am able to perceive my thoughts, but my thoughts are not me. They are my thoughts. Same with my emotions. And so, folks, if you never realize that, that's a big one. So welcome to an entire new world, because to me it has been like, this word game changer is very over abused, really, like we can see it everywhere. But really, to me, it has been an absolute game changer. Like suddenly. I was able to distance myself from my thoughts and emotions and not feeling trapped. Until then, I felt like in the bad days, I felt like a wild animal trapped into a cage way too tiny for its size, and it felt oppressing. It felt like it drove me mad, quite literally, especially when you're neurodivergent, right? And when you have like an entire jungle of thoughts and emotions, unruled thoughts and emotions, it can be managed until you realize, hey, you know what? This is not me. I have that. This is to my service if I want to, but I don't have to be the slave of my emotions and thoughts. I can befriend them. I can control and channel and direct them. So it totally changes the game.
I totally agree. I think it was probably somewhere in my early 30s. I found the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and I got it on audiobook, and I would play it in my car. And when he started to talk in the book about being the watcher, you're the watcher, it really was, I agree, it was a game changer. It changed literally the way I thought about things, and it suddenly gave me some distance from everything, and there was so much space to heal after that, because every time I started to feel, some of those things that come up, he talks about the pain body. And anytime that pain would happen, I would remind myself, just, you're the watcher. It's not happening to you. Those, like you said, those aren't my emotions. I'm having an emotion, it doesn't belong to me. So I think that's so huge. I wish there was a bigger word than game changer, but yeah, I agree with you. It is. It really is. And I hope you're right. I hope somebody is listening and just puts that to the test a little bit, kind of goes a little deeper into awareness and realizing there's only now, and I'm watching this. I'm an observer. Um and you were a spirit, whatever you want to call it, embodied and having a human experience. And this is the one that we've potentially chosen for ourselves. I don't know that for sure. That's kind of what I believe, that this is the journey we picked. Um, and for me, the timing couldn't be better for this time in world history and human history, to be able to feel and experience so much, even though it can feel overwhelming, especially with a neurodivergent brain, especially with a brain that's always perceiving everything. I think I don't really relate to the experience of people who are not neurodivergent thinkers. I don't know what quiet in the brain is. For years, I tried to meditate and I was like, I can't get it quiet up there, until I realized like it doesn't get quiet up there. It just doesn't. That's just, but I can put some distance between me, my experience, and just watching and allowing. And I actually have a practice that I've used in meditation, I've talked about before on the podcast, where I actually see my thoughts as a little girl, little me, and I just invite her to come sit with me and meditate. And it's okay for her to be wiggling in her seat and getting up and down and looking at things around the room and smelling the flowers and singing a little song she has in her head, because it's okay. She can be there with me. I can still enjoy the benefits of meditation without having to berate this little child who just can't help that she's so excited about everything in the world.
Which is wonderful. Like we actually, it's one of the things that most adults miss the most. That faculty, that ability to wonder, that sense of wonder that only kids have at that high peak. this is phenomenal. Like you having the power to reconnect with that at will. This is fantastic. So yeah, like some people could feel like, no, this little girl should be grounded. It's bothering me. It's disturbing me. Oh, come on! Like this is the holy grail of so many people. So you having the ability to tap into that, I feel it's so very precious. I love that. I applaud that you've been able to build a practice to really make your inner child feel welcomed and yeah, and just connect you to this invitation to play and wonder and explore.
Yeah, thank you. And I also think it reflects how I want to treat children, real children in the real world. And in my day job, I work with kids, and I work with kids who are school aged. And many of the children I work with have, neurodivergent diagnoses and other brain based challenges. And I always see myself as this advocate for them to be able to be who they are and not feel like there's something wrong with them, you know, and to help other adults that work with them to see who they really are and how special they are, and not to, like you said, not to see yourself as your feelings, not to see kids as their, quote unquote behaviors, because behavior is just a symptom of something else, but to see them as who they are. They're a child who has a diagnosis, who has some challenges, but that's not who they are. Those are just things that are pieces of them, that are about them. But as an adult, we get to look at that and really seek to deeply see what makes them unique and special and celebrate it with them. That we don't always have to apply this lens of like, let's investigate and find what's wrong with you and fix it and make it better so that you can perfectly fit into this one model. It's a little bit of my soapbox there, for all the kids having to, be able to sit still and pay attention, which I'm an occupational therapist. So, and my background is in sensory integration. So sitting still and paying attention is often doesn't go together. I don't know about you, but I often, if I've got music on and I'm moving around and I'm listening to something, I'm learning it better than if I were to sit still and try to focus on it. And in little brains, they're not ready to sit still, So that's just my soapbox moment. That's something I hope somebody listening will say, oh my gosh, I need to apply that to the children in my life and realize that, like you said, that sense of wonder and innocence and like pure bliss in what the day might have. Kids get up and they run down the stairs for like excited for what's going to happen today. Um, and they're very present in their lives, you know. And I think that's something that I love about being neurodivergent, because literally, like, we joke, you say squirrel, and you're you're looking to see the squirrel. But instead of saying like, oh my gosh, I can't focus, it's like I am so aware of beauty and magnificence and excitement and wonder and fun. And getting to allow my brain to exist that way and not feel like there's something wrong with me makes life a whole lot more fun.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love it so much. I feel I don't know how about you, but there are like three massive pillars for me in terms of it goes beyond personal development and just like making your watering yourself like a beautiful plant and really flourishing the most beautifully you can. And those three are compassion, gratitude, and forgiveness. Those three are three meta keys opening a cornucopia of goodness. They are absolutely fantastic. And I really believe that this sense of wonder, this amazing sense of wonder from kids you tap directly into your potential to gratitude. There is something really directly linked. If you can really play fully with your inner child or whatever you call it, and really reconnect with that ability to open gigantic eyes full of stars by discovering something new and fascinating and yummy. That is phenomenal. And there is innately some gratitude in it. Like, and you don't even have to express it. It's always better if you do, right? But it just comes as a given. When you see a kid with gigantic eyes, like it feels like Christmas to them. There is so much gratitude linked to it. And there is something, and I'd say that type of gratitude naturally expands into compassion.
Mm.
Naturally allows you to grow your heart. So basically, you're tackling two of these meta keys at once, one after the other. Forgiveness, it's something else. It's more complicated to navigate, right? It's more, you need to be much more intentional. But you're already like doing more than half of the hard work. So I feel it's extremely powerful. And yeah, just it doesn't have to be very difficult to do. Just trying to remember what it was to discover the world when you're 4 or 5 year old, or just trying something new and exciting, and really like seeing as often as possible, seeing trying new things as an adventure. Like you would be a Frodon and the gang and exploring, exploring the land of the Lord of the Rings. You being really feeling that you're an adventurer and you're going to explore and have fun. Yeah, it might be scary at times, might not feel so good at times, but still being an adventure.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And um, I remember when we first met and we were conversing and talking about all of the the fantasy books and things that really influenced just this excitement of like things could be completely different, and expanding your mind in that way. Um, I love that. Speaking of reading, I I've been such a passionate person for self-development. And I feel like it's made a shift in the past few years, less about the personal development and more about really understanding myself better and really digging deeper into the layers. One of the ways that I've done that is through the exploration of human design and understanding what that energetic blueprint means. Um, there's so many different ways to look at that. So I know this is an area that's really interesting to you, that sense of understanding yourself. So how does that go for you? How do you like to investigate who you are?
So yeah, I studied that a long time ago because that's the thing. Especially, yeah, I'd say it comes from negative, and I turn it into positive. Because once again, because I felt there was something wrong with me, because I was so different, I try to understand why. Why am I so different? What is wrong with me, and how could I fix it? At least it was the initial intention. And after some time, I realized, hey, you know what? No, there is absolutely nothing wrong with me. I don't have to fix it. No, it comes with a price. It comes with some downsides. There are some upsides. I'm not always able to seize. Like you know that, right? As a neurodivergent, you know it comes with benefits, but it also comes with prices. Some hidden, some not so much. So really, how could I develop that? Get the very best of the benefits and have the nicest, not so threatening price, and so all is good, right? And so I started this a long time ago through many practices, especially. So I started to explore some Chinese wisdom, ancient Chinese wisdom. I explored some Japanese, some yeah, many different practices, and at some point, really, what allowed me to understand myself the most were personality tests. The very first I discovered was process.com, that has been very big a few decades ago. Nowadays, not so much, not so many people remember process.com. But others are much more famous these days, like Myers-Briggs or Enneagram. Human design, you mentioned, actually, I discovered very recently. And all these different personality types really brought a lot of understanding. They really allowed me to understand myself better. I know some people are very resistant to personality tests. They don't want to be boxed. They feel it could be restrictive, or they feel it is restrictive. I don't see it that way. I see, on the contrary, it allows you to shed a very specific type of light on yourself, but it always felt incomplete. It always felt somewhat not not cutting it. So my initial idea for some time was to combining. So as you can see behind me, I love the type of stained glass type of work or patchwork. I love that idea. So it was kind of what I was trying to do with my different personality tests, to have a kind of patchwork of me that would make sense. But still, it felt like a chore. It felt like a huge work, and still it was kind of a little bit off. Like I still couldn't get the full picture. And finally, a few months ago, I discovered a practice once again from China called Bazi. And this time it was like, oh my gosh! Like if I'm trying to rate it in a way, every personality test I did, basically they brought me 1 to 2 levels of understanding. This time I got like 10 at once.
Mm.
Like it was, wow, what is that? At the point, it kind of scared me. It scared me how accurate it was. It scared me how much valuable information it was. So at first I was like, whoa, get out of my head. What are you doing? Like it felt almost as an invasion. And then I realized also how practical it could be, and how practical I could actually be able to leverage my strengths and mitigate my weaknesses, my natural tendencies. And it was like, oh wow. So I did one of the things I love the most. So I nerded out big time. I geeked out big time on this practice. And actually, the more I deepened it, the more I realized, oh, you know what? You just scratched the surface. It was just the beginning. So actually, there was even more and even more. So to me, it has been like, yeah, I won't use game changer this time because it can relate to that realization we discussed. But still, like for me, I made like a gigantic jump into discovering myself. So yeah, very exciting discovery.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I haven't checked this out yet. So how does it, I mean, I understand human design. You put in your time of birth, the date where you were, and you kind of get this energetic blueprint. How does this practice work?
So the short version would be is human design from the East.
Mm-hmm.
And I would assume actually human design has been deeply inspired by Bazi. I can be sure. Honestly, I haven't researched that. I'm pretty sure that there is a connection. So it kind of works the same way. There is also a birth information. It's based on your birth information, and it really is all about an energetic blueprint. But it's not the Western elements that are involved. It's not the Western way to look at energy. It's the Eastern, or in that case, the Chinese way to look at energy. And yeah, I don't want to go into details because it will drown people. But especially like what I mentioned earlier, and what one of the most important components of that and what I find the most fascinating and totally connected to my work. So as many things in China, especially when they are old and important practices, Bazi has many names. And the most common is the four pillars of destiny. Very, very pompous, right? Very a serious name. And but actually, it's quite accurate. And the idea is you don't have one personality. You have actually four sets of personalities for four different environments. And you have like the social environment, the career environment, your personal pillar, which like the closest to you. And the last one is the more complex to explain. It's a mix between everything that you create, including your kids, if you have, everything that will be burst from you. Or basically, all the books you will write, all the songs you will create, all the podcasts you will host, everything that you bring to the world, and also all your deep desires, all your aspirations, all your kind of your secret garden, what you would like to be when you grow up, whatever age you are. So it's kind of a big mix bag of everything. So I decided to call this pillar legacy pillar. Because it's really everything that you leave behind for others to enjoy, and and really most people will have a very different set of personalities for each pillar, which explains so much to me.
Mm-hmm.
Which explain especially like why it's so difficult to have one aligned congruent identity. Because if you start with the premise that hey, you know what, in any case, at the very least you will have four. So actually, it explains a lot, and also one that has been extremely powerful. It explains also why some people change faces. Like you will, for example, you will know someone as a friend, as a distant friend. You have fun. You go and have a few drinks, and they will behave a certain way. And then something happened after a couple too many drinks, and boom, you're dating them. You're in a relationship, and this person actually is very different from the friend you had. And you're like, oh, what happens? Like, actually, so that person was lying, all it was just a facade. That person was behaving in one way just to please me or to kind of woo me or whatever. When actually, based on the Badger practice, no, it just they showed up in with one set of personality in a social setting, and now in a personal intimate setting they're showing up in a different, but it's still the same person. It's still them. It's just, it would be like, look at a diamond or a gem. If you move that under the light, you will show a different facet, but it's still the same gem. You're not lying. You're not saying, oh no, it was a fake gem all along, because you just shifted the facet and it shines back a different type of light. No, it's still the same gem. You just turn the gem and you're showing a different facet. So to me, it has been, oh wow, like it explains so many things. And once again, I'm just scratching the surface, right? I don't want to go too deep. As you can see, I could talk about that for hours, so I won't do that. But it's just to give you a few examples on how powerful it can be.
I love that. I think that's so cool. I'm totally interested, and I appreciate the geeking out on it because that's something I enjoy doing as well. So let's shift a little bit. What are you doing in the world now in terms of, operating out of those three pillars that you talked about: compassion, joy, forgiveness, embracing who you are, and really finding other misfits, as you say. How does that look for you in what you're doing and how you're operating in life and work and relationships? You could pick one of those.
So I see that there are many ways to answer your question actually. Would you be able to rephrase it so I just focus on one angle, like kind of journalism style? Otherwise,
100%.
same. My mind jungle will take over, and we'll go for hours. You can do that.
Okay. How in your work, in what you do, in working with other people and empowering misfits, how is that you're engaged in that work? What does a typical work day look like for you?
Oh, that's yeah, and it's very, very interesting because I'm currently in a shift. And very first, thank you so much for reformulating the question. So I thought I understood something along those lines, but yeah, it really helps. So I really appreciate. And um, and so my starting point, hence the Mr. Mingle, really my specialty is relationships. It's something that I'm extremely good at, especially friendships, but really all sorts of relationships. And that was really all the start of my journey as a coach and as a trainer to really help others improve the quality of their relationships. And at some point, I realized there was a massive piece missing. And that if you want to really to improve the quality of your relationship, you better start with one very special relationship with yourself. And you don't have like to lock yourself in a cave and do that for 10 years, and then go in the world and enjoy a healthy relationship, right? Of course, you can do all at once, but you absolutely have to work on the inner, do the inner work first and foremost. It really has to start inwards, and otherwise, you might be very good at connecting with other people, but you will still stink inside if you see what I mean. Like if you're not kind of doing your inner um, clean up. Yeah, that won't cut it. You might enjoy great friends, but you won't be a great friends to others. You better do that. And plus, being your own BFF, your own best friend forever, which is very important. So I really started to strongly lean in that direction, not forgetting the end game of connecting strongly with other people, but really starting with ourselves. And now, so it has been several months that I discovered Balzer, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so powerful to understand yourself better, to actually lay powerful foundations to improve your relationship with yourself, to understand why you tend to develop addictions to some things, why you have natural tendencies, why you tend to go into nasty loops it's so difficult to get out to, why you are so very good at some things, or maybe extremely structured in some things and absolutely not in others. All of that, it gives you a wonderful clarity, extremely precise clarity on why you function the way you do. I see it as an operation manual. And that's the thing, when people that are like us, that are what I call misfits, we don't come with an operation manual, because the people that fit in, they borrow an operation manual. They were like, you know what? I want to fit in. I'm okay to be an obedient, what I call normie, just fitting in the norm, and they will borrow this operation manual. Like you know the drill. Like you are supposed to be married with a nice little house in the suburbs with a dog, probably a Labrador, and 2.5 kids. You know the drill, right? Like the picture perfect type of
Yeah,
life
yeah.
according to society. So it's more easy. You borrow this operation manual. This is where I should go. I'm supposed to be good enough at school, go to the university, have a good enough job. It doesn't matter if I'm not fulfilled by my job. It's supposed to pay the bills, so it doesn't matter. Just work my ass off. Sorry for the language. Excuse my French, as I love to say. Um, and just grind your way to be able to send your kids to university when the time is right, until you might decide to finally enjoy life when you retire. Sounds a bell? I'd say like you probably have around you people following this operational manual. You and I, we don't subscribe to that. We never could fit in, and we but which is to me it's a good thing. It's to me fitting in is winning at the wrong game.
Mm.
And to me the real game is belonging, and starting by belonging with yourself, being authentic with yourself and with your own self. So based on that, the idea is good thing we avoided this operational manual that obviously wouldn't bring us happiness and joy, but it doesn't mean we know which operation manual we are supposed to follow. So we have to figure it out because we are so unique. We decided to stick to our uniqueness and not trade it just so we could fit in. So we're being congruent, but we still have no idea. Okay, what does success mean to me? What does joy mean to me? What I'm supposed to do with all my gifts and all my uncommerant weaknesses as well, and what I'm supposed to do with all of that? I don't have any clue. So really, Badzer to me allows you to really have a kind of very clear at least foundation to build your own operation manual. And once you have that, it's so much clearer, so much easier to do. Okay, I want to do that. And now you can really work on yourself. And then you can have these absolutely amazing relationships especially like, I don't know if you ever heard about the Grand Study, the longest study of human behavior in humankind. 80 years of research, a very, very long and powerful study. The result of that study, the one component that was the most defining in our capability to be joyful and happy were relationships. But once again, if you really want to enjoy relationships, you better start with yourself. And if you really want to understand how to start with yourself, it's good to have some good degree of clarity. So it was a long explanation, but I hope it made sense.
It made complete sense. I love it. And um, as you were talking about, I was like, yep, me. Went to, I mean, I was literally at 16, like looking at career options and saying, I need to get a good job. I need to meet someone. I need to, get married, buy the house. And like, I literally did all of that in my early 20s and then found myself at 28 married to someone who was in a crisis and just not a healthy person, wasn't happy by any stretch of the imagination, didn't want to be married, didn't know what he wanted. And I felt like it was like the end of everything for me. Like I'd never said like I'm going to get married and get divorced. But it was such a gift because it really caused me to start to examine everything in my life and say, if this was not my life, what would it be like? Like if I were going to dream something out of the sky, and a lot of the things that I dreamed ended up coming true. And so in that moment of crisis that I had and embracing that, I pivoted in a big way. And it's almost like there became like this truth stick. And I was like, is this true? Is this for me? Is it not? And little by little, I started to dismantle all those things. And I mean, I did all the things. I did the therapy, I did the reading, I did you name it, I tried it. Um, to figure out that all along I was not befriending myself, like you said. So I think that is such a critical piece. And it is a healing in some of these habits and behaviors we have are just very sticky, and there's deep grooves in our brains excuse me, that really we can fall back into so easily. And it just takes some time to heal those patterns and to look at things differently. I probably at 16 wouldn't have envisioned my life the way it is now, but I think the core values and who I really was and what was important to me is what I'm doing with my life.
Yeah, I love it. And yeah, it's so very, very important when you realize, that it's not because most people feel a certain way and behave a certain way and follow one specific operation manual that it has to be yours. And don't get me wrong, I feel actually it's fantastic that so many people are able to fit in. It gives some kind of a foundation piece. What is sad is many of them are unhappy, are deeply unhappy, and they don't even realize why. Because once again, they are playing at the wrong game. They are winning, but at the wrong game, so they are feeling miserable. But I'm pretty sure actually there are many people that really are satisfied of that, and they were meant to fit in, and it's perfect. So we have like that encore piece, and then you have all the people around, all the misfits, all the weirdos, all the atypical people, and it's absolutely okay to have both. And there is no reason we don't have both. And to me, so of course, my mind is heavily influenced by by that Badger thing. I'm geeking out big time these days, but it works really like a yin and yang, which is part of Badger. Like they are the yang and we are the yin, or the other way around. It doesn't even matter, but we complement each other. Like the people on the fringe makes sense because there is a fringe to begin with, and there is something central and steady, and I also we also give them more meaning by actually defining something outside of that fringe. We also reinforce that a feeling of them that it is their ground, and some of them feel good about that. Some others not so much, but they are not ready and might never be to go and actually fully accept themselves. So I feel it. Yeah, it's very interesting. And actually, I didn't even realize, but it would explain, that tiny bit, inside of each part of yin and yang. It would be like that. So that actually some people in the fringe should be fitting in, and they weren't being allowed to somewhat, and some people in the norm, they actually should be in the fringe. There are actually some people that are not where they are meant to.
Mm, yeah, I love it too, and I think it's such a beautiful thing to reach a point where you not only have self-acceptance, but you crave that ability to see others as they are and try to be more accepting and understanding. And so I love that piece of those three pillars that you mentioned earlier: compassion, joy, and forgiveness. That having a lot of compassion for other people's understanding underlies that. If you're compassionate, you're seeking to understand better. And we can apply that to ourselves as well. I think that forgiveness piece is so huge because it would be easy for me to go back and look at myself at 24 and be like, what was wrong with you? Why did you do that? Like, why would you get married? Why would you? And instead, I feel like that's just part of my journey. It doesn't need to, go on was this a right or was it wrong? It's neither. It just was. And all of that informs who I am today. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the journeys that I've had. And um, Yeah. So I feel like this is such a great place to end this conversation. I know I could talk with you for hours on end. And so um, just give us your final thoughts, a great piece of advice for the listener today. After listening to all of this, what should they do first? What do you recommend? We talked about befriending yourself. We talked about these pillars. We talked about um, really exploring who you are and what you're about, and finding that sense of belonging even within yourself. What's most important for someone to walk away with today?
I'd say it's quite difficult to really have one specific answer, one fit all answer, because that's the thing. We are so very different. We come from for so many different backgrounds, and our challenges are all very different as well. I just finished research recently to really figure out, the different common challenges of misfits and the common ways to overcome them and really become a thriving misfit. And that's the thing. There are a few, like a top three or four, but they are all very different. But really, I'd say the very first. Yeah, I would love to use like two specific very important pieces, and you mentioned one which is extremely important. It's understanding, open-mindedness, understanding, which partly covers forgiveness, but actually goes even beyond that, and really being able to accept other paradigms, other types of ideas or other positions, even if they feel extreme, even they feel like absolutely opposite to yours. If you're able to have a calm, healthy conversation with someone that actually has the opposite views that you have, it's extremely powerful. Like really embracing this understanding with others and also with yourself, with like, hey, you know what? When I was 16, yeah, I did things I don't feel too good about that, right? You might feel ashamed, you might feel guilty, you might have tons of negative feelings about that. It might be a way to like being understanding, not complacent, but
Huh? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
being understanding that you didn't know better at that time. You let yourself being led into that direction. You didn't stand for yourself, and you didn't say no to those guys that brought you in this difficult situation. No, everything that really be very understanding, and them and those guys or girls that led you into that. They didn't know better themselves. They were just trying to figure out their own life and their own, they're just experimenting, right? I'd say like understanding with all its different facets is an amazing skill to build, extremely powerful skill to build. And another one would be curiosity. Curiosity, which is linked to what we uh, to what we discussed about the inner child. And really, but once again, it goes even beyond that, and really being curious and taking taking bold leaps. Not, it doesn't have to be dangerous ones, but really taking a chance, trying, like if you're always eating the same thing, try something new, try something wild and exotic for a change. You might be disappointed. That's okay. That's part of the exploration, but you might be blown away, your mind blown by the experience. It might absolutely transform your life for the better. Just try something new and explore and just be curious and try to reconnect with your inner child. And if something very unusual, very odd, very alien cross your path, just pay attention and be curious, ask questions, and extend an inviting hand. Do make a first step, and more often than not, you will probably be very surprised. Just what came to me, just to finish on that, there is this amazing movie with Jim Carrey called Yes Man. It's an amazing invitation to curiosity and saying yes to life. So I would say like, yeah, being open-minded and being curious. So yeah, watch Yes Man, you will understand.
I love it. It's a great movie. Thank you so much. I think that's great. I agree with you. Understanding and curiosity are two of my favorite words. So I love that you said those. I want to thank everybody for listening today. I want you to thank Mr. Mingle for joining us, for being here, for sharing so much from your heart and your experience. And I look forward to hearing what happens next in your journey. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a wonderful, wonderful episode. Really appreciate it, Kelly.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.